Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk of the Town. Well, we made it every 2 weeks, and we're back, and Kenny's feeling pretty good, so we decided to do a show, and I welcome you to it. My name's Karen Bukes, and I'm the host for this evening. I'd like to say hello to David Gallerani. I miss you, David. I couldn't go to town meeting, but I watched it and miss you. David and Kevin own Cape Auto Body and Cape Service right here in Plymouth. And then we have Wrestling Brewster with Wrestling with Computers. That's a show right here on PAC TV. And One Stop Painting with Jeff Cohen. Jeff Cohen is a wonderful, wonderful person, does a lot of fundraising for people in this town and gives 100% to that person. I want to say good town meeting. I missed being with you, but I want you to know I did watch it, and that's a good thing. So tonight, you know, I'm going through my list. I had booked people in December all the way through to June. And, well, you know what happened. So that went by the boards, and slowly I'm trying to bring them back, but I had to give my next guest an apology because I completely overlooked him. So he's here tonight, and he happens to be a dear, dear friend. We've sat on committees together, and I respect him very, very much. Please welcome Marc Garrett.
So the question is, should I accept your apology or should I not? It's accepted.
I made it public. But
you've been balancing a lot of plates. I get it. It's all right.
But the night that you called, I was in bed, and tell people what happened. Kenny answered.
Well, actually, I forget who called who. I think I called. I think you're right. But I was calling mostly to check on Kenny. And Kenny brought up something about the show, which happened to be it was the Sunday, the 20th, the 19th, whatever it was.
He can do one every other week. Yeah.
So he brought up the show, but very generically. So I said, "Well, it's funny you bring that up, Ken." I said, you know, I was going to ask you before we got done with this conversation if, you know, you were still going to do the show. I mean, I completely understand if you're not going to do it because of the health. Excuse me, because of the health issues. And he said, "Oh, well, yeah, we're doing the show, but you're not a guest." So I'm looking at my smartphone and looking at the calendar. It says TOTT. Well,
yeah.
He said, "Oh, no. Dave Malaguti's coming on to talk about the sewer line." I said, "Oh, preempted." And I believe when I said preempted, I heard in the background an
I know, because Kenny repeated what you said, and I went, "Oh my God!" And I felt so bad, but you know, but you're here.
We can laugh about this stuff, so relax.
We laugh about it, but of course, everybody knows you that you sit on the planning board. Now, let's talk about that. How long have you been on the planning board?
I'm in my 10th year, my 10th and final year. Well, let me rephrase that. 10th and final year of these 2 terms. Right. I am not seeking re-election.
I was going to ask you that. I knew that, and it's going to be a great loss to the planning board, but I understand. And 10 years, you know.
It's a long time. You do your job, and if anybody knows me, I do it completely. I throw myself completely into it. You may not always agree with me, and that's fine. I respect that, but I challenge people to challenge me because I certainly do my homework. And frankly, as they say, life gets in the way, personal and professional. And right now, I work out of town 4 days a week. Now, 3 years ago, I worked in town 5 days a week. So I was here, I was available, I was able to respond very quickly to requests or respond to information gathering. I can't do that anymore. I'm 2 days in Bridgewater, teaching at Bridgewater State University, 2 years consulting and working with the town of Dartmouth as in their conservation office. So I'm 35 miles away all day, 4 days. So for me, my only available day is on Fridays, and that I still run my own company, and I have some clients who I take care of on the private side. That just doesn't give me any time for public service right now. Now, one thing I've learned over the course of my life is you never say always and you never say never.
Right.
So the fact that I'm not running for office this go around doesn't mean I'm not going to be involved. If anybody knows me, I'm always involved. I stick my nose where it doesn't belong sometimes. So I'm going to be involved. I sit on the Plymouth Education Foundation. I sit as a board member. I was asked to sit on the Plymouth Harbor Planning Subcommittee. I sit on that. So I'm still involved, and I still get calls. I got a call last night from somebody for some advice, on how to handle something in town. So my opinions are still sought after. I think they will continue to be. And that's fine, because that's who I am, because a big part of what I do is about the town I live in. And the town I live in is Plymouth. I've done very well in Plymouth. Plymouth owes me nothing. I owe Plymouth my success. Or part of my success. So I will be giving back. I'm only 59 years old. Unless I get knocked over by a car or a bus tomorrow, I'm still going to be doing stuff, and I'm still going to be around.
Young. Yeah. You're not going to move, are you?
Well, like I said, I never say never, and I never say always. I have no vision of moving right now. I love Plymouth. I love, the town. I love everything about it. I do threaten eastern Montana every now and then, Quonset hut and 50 dogs.
Oh,
but
sure.
I haven't pulled that one off. And my wife, Maureen's not going to Montana with me.
No, not in a Quonset hut.
She's not going to Montana if I build her a mansion.
Yes, too cold.
Well, for starters, yes.
Yes. I mean, we're cold enough here. did you expect this snowstorm?
Yes, I'm a dog musher. I feel it. I mean, this has been a very interesting winter that wasn't, except for brief periods. We've had, I'm going to guess, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30 inches of snow, which is generally a little over the average for what we get. Yet,
we did?
Over the course of the entire winter, yes. If you look at all those storms and incrementally add them up, we've had a couple of 8 to 10 inch jobs in there. It's approached about 30 inches. Again, it could be 26, it could be 32, I don't know. But it's a number that is at or maybe slightly above the average. But it was camouflaged by weeks of 60 degrees and 50 degrees. So it was more like spring with these visitations of winter weather. And then, of course, we had that cold spell back in, I guess it was February, where it really got cold for a few days. But by and large, it's been a very mild winter. I mean, the grass has really never browned out.
Right.
And although the crocus heads were below the soil, they weren't very far below the soil, and they have come and gone already, 2-3 weeks. So it's been a very, very interesting season.
My tulips all got snowed on, and I hope they make it,
Easter snow, Christmas 60 degrees on the beach, Isn't that the way it goes?
Yeah, it does. Do you think we'll get El Nino again? They predict that at this time it's even going to be bigger.
Well, I teach in the geography department at Bridgewater State, and one of the things I teach in physical geography, and one of the things I try to convey to the students about geography, it's not just map making, it's about the earth and what it does and how it does it. And nature seeks one thing, it seeks balance. And the farther you push nature out of balance, at some point there's a threshold met, and nature is going to want to bring it back to balance. So if you push it out 10, the return is going to be 10. If you push it out 3, the return is going to be 3. And it's those differentials in numbers that are violent storms versus calm storms, big winters versus mild winters, El Ninos versus non-El Nino conditions. So,
Right.
yeah, I believe that we're going to have El Ninos. I think that we're in a period of milder climates, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Yes, part of it is our fault. There is a human factor involved, but if you could go back and interview, Tyrannosaurus Rex before the great reptile extinction, climate was changing then too. So it's not an all or nothing proposition. I mean, there are factors that we should take into account, that we should change to kind of mitigate for conditions that help climate change or global warming. But by the same token, we've only been collecting data for 180 years, give or take. The world is, based on our estimates in geologic time, 4.6 billion years. That's a small data set. We've done a lot of empirical analysis, ice cores, things of that nature, which give us ideas of what took place. But what we do know is there were massive changes. What I will say about climate change is that the levels we are seeing now measurably, we have never seen before, nor have we predicted. That is the scary point.
But you say we've never seen before. How long have we been?
Well, I mean, through the empirical analysis. I mean, we can through, and I mean, it's too technical to go into here. But there are indicators that will tell us
Levels of granite and stone,
fossils, stone, where certain types of rock, where you can age. Obviously, people know about carbon dating, half-lives of carbon-14, where you can sort of date and pick periods of time. But 10,000 years ago was the Pleistocene epoch, which was the last ice age. It was only 10,000 years ago. And things are drastically different today than they were then, and they were drastically different 10,000 years before the ice. So my point is that while I'm not saying that there is no climate change, because I do believe there is a change, what's the context of that change? And I think we're worried about it because it's a change that directly affects us. We are the ones who have to deal with it, so it becomes an issue, and it becomes a bit of an emotional issue. And unfortunately, we govern a lot by emotion these days.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is a natural occurrence and is supposed to happen. But there's also scientific data that...
There's trend data, absolutely. I'm not arguing that. We have to keep it into context. It's, as you're involved in government, it's never the best and it's never the worst.
Right.
Those are the extremes. It's going to fall somewhere in the middle.
Right.
And if it's skewing towards the worst, take caution. If it's skewing towards the best, enjoy it, preserve it, nurture it.
Have you done any studies on the sun?
Me personally? No. No, I know it's hot.
No, I worry about the sun. Burning out.
That one, when I don't know, and I don't know that one, so I can't answer.
My sister will say to me, "Do you realize we're spinning?" Stupid stuff like that. But tell me about your teaching at the school. You do it 2 days a week, and what do you teach?
I teach a collection of physical geography classes, some lab classes for majors, some non-lab classes for non-majors. I also teach Introduction to Geographic Information Systems, GIS.
Is that a stepping stone to weather analysis, or is it?
No, weather analysis is part of the physical geography program because physical geography is the study of the Earth systems, the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, all the water on and above the Earth and in the Earth, the geosphere, the rocks, the stones, the dirt, and the biosphere, everything that lives in the air, in the water.
What kind of person would take your course?
The way the school is set up, geography majors take the lab geography, because that's a requirement. They also take GIS as a requirement. The non-lab physical geography classes, actually, I like them all, and I like them all a lot. But I really like the non-lab because it gives me an opportunity to talk to students whose mindset aren't in science. They're not in geography. They're not in the weather. They're not in life, biological life. They're just out there doing their thing. You know, they're music majors, they're English majors, they're this. They're worried about other things. And it gives me an opportunity, because I think that we're all, and I think you would agree with me, we are all stewards of the planet that we live on. We have to take care of it. You know, the world is not that big, and it's not growing, and it's not shrinking. It's the same size. The one thing that's changing is human population to a vast extent. Yeah. So it gives me an opportunity to get the non-majors to start thinking about these issues and be conversant. I want them to know why we're getting 60-mile-an-hour winds this year every third day versus why we haven't experienced this in the past. I want them to understand why an earthquake off of Sendai, Japan, causes a tsunami that transits the entire Pacific Ocean, and the west coast of the United States, while not damaged by it, I think there was some minor damage. There was minor damage in some harbors, but by and large, why did it transit the entire world? What's the difference between a tidal wave and the wave that your body surf out at Nauset Beach on the Cape? Things like that. I want them to appreciate that, because I think it's important for even the non-major to understand that their existence has implications, both positive and negative, but it gives me an opportunity to help them understand that they're a component in this wonderful deal called the planet Earth, you know, and it's fun. It's fun because when you get down, when you're talking to science majors, you're talking science, and that's great. But when you're talking to non-science majors, you're not always talking science. Right. You know, and
but you're opening up their mind.
Yeah. Well, you're trying to.
Yeah. So what kind of jobs, professions would your science, geography science students go into?
I don't think it's something that trains them for a vocation specifically. I think it trains them for a lot of vocations.
It cooperates.
You know, I mean, physical geography is a great way to understand land use. To me, I would recommend to a student wanting to go into my career, environmental science, to take a lot of geology classes, because they because my business is the reaction of the land and the water to human activities or to natural activities. I can study a harbor that gets polluted because an oil tanker breaks up, or I can study a harbor out on the Cape that changes because a storm comes along and blows a breach through a barrier beach, and all of a sudden what was waterfront property on an embayment is now waterfront property on the open ocean. There are a lot of different aspects that you can go into. So it's a broad-based underlying discipline of science that helps to train you for those kind of things. And that's one career. There are other careers. Map making. I mean, the GIS piece. Everybody uses GIS. You use GIS. Most people don't realize that they use GIS. Okay, you call them GPS units in your car. That's really GIS data. Somebody has plugged that data in, and you're reading a map. That's a geographically information system generated map.
Do you know the car that stopped in front of our house with all the gizmos on top, and the guy was mapping, and he stayed there for quite a while, and you could see what he was doing, and the machinery on top was moving, and it was pretty cool. It was one day in the summer, and
he was data collecting.
You know,
today I was out flagging a wetland in Dartmouth for a private applicant, and in the old days, I would go out, I would hang flags, then you'd have to hire a surveyor to go out
Oh,
and
yeah.
locate the flags, and they'd have to go back and plot them on the map. That was, you know, in the 80s and in the 90s. Well, now I have a handheld GPS unit,
A computer.
a data collector.
Yeah.
I hang the flags. I enter the locations of the flag. Then I take that computer. I bring it back. That handheld. I bring it back to my office. I plug it into my desktop. I have we have in Dartmouth
Software.
a map of Dartmouth. Okay, I can plug those points in, download them onto the map, which is an aerial photo, and in about 20 minutes, I can produce for the client a picture, an aerial photo of their house with the mapped wetlands and the areas of jurisdiction that they need to avoid or they need to get permits in.
Love it.
Now, that used to cost $2,000 back in the day. Now it costs them $100.
All right.
I'm a cost-effective guy, huh?
Yes, you are.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting the way that the technology helps us in doing this kind of stuff. So it's very helpful to me. I mean, Lee Hartman, our town planner, uses GIS all the time.
Yeah.
The engineers, the civil engineers, use geography all the time. I mean, they don't say it, but they do it. It's an underlying foundational discipline that most people really need if you're into outdoor science. If you're into lab, benchtop science, research, probably not, you know, appropriate for that, but certainly very, really, you know, important. As a matter of fact, it's so important. I'm gonna shill for some of my colleagues. And I've talked to the delegation about this. There are 2 bills pending. They're in conference right now to put geography back as core curriculum.
I heard that, and I am thrilled about it.
I mean, K through 12 and into
Yes.
higher education, because you know, when you're talking about kindergartners, you're not going to give them a map and tell them to plot a route from Hartford to you know, Bangor, Maine.
But do you know how much has been lost?
But they do have spatial, cognitive skills, and you begin and you get them. I ask students in my class. I'm in Bridgewater. And I don't pick places really close because a lot of them are commuters and they know. I mean, they'll know where Brockton is. They'll know where New Bedford or Fall River is. But I'll ask them, I say, can anybody tell me where Springfield, Massachusetts is relative to where we're sitting right now?
Yeah.
Blanks.
Yeah.
Has anybody
That's not right.
has anybody ever heard of Pittsfield?
No.
Blanks.
Yeah.
Can anybody tell me where Lawrence is? Blanks. This is our state, and last time I looked, Massachusetts is not that big a state. I mean, you can fit a lot of Massachusetts in
so
Texas
upsetting.
or California.
Yeah.
This we don't even understand, and these are students who live in. This is not somebody who came from Kansas. This is these are students who largely live in the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
And they don't know.
They don't.
And they like look at me sheepishly, and I say, you know why you don't know? Because your idea of a map is a 3-inch by 5-inch screen on your dashboard that moves, and you don't know if it's moving east or west, north or south, or on a diagonal. You just know it goes from screen to screen to screen. When that thing breaks, you're lost. Now, I get it. I'm a nut. I drive sled dogs in the middle of nowhere, so I like to know where I am even when I'm nowhere.
Of course.
But I mean, in our day-to-day life, you have to have some understanding of your spatial presence.
Of where you are.
Where you are, you know, and you know, you may be in Bridgewater, or you may be in Plymouth, and you have an opinion based on where you are. But you know, there are people in Springfield and Pittsfield who are in different areas who have different needs, and you know, it's all part of the whole concept of community. We are the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We're not the individual wealth of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And technology, unfortunately, we've allowed it to make us very insular. we put on the blinders. We worry about us
Yes,
and the
but
screen.
not having geography in the classes has been going on for a very long time.
Oh, absolutely. Too long. Way too long.
History and geography. Straight history, straight geography.
What do I tell you about history?
Well, if you don't learn it, you're going to repeat it.
No, what I've told you. Now you see you didn't learn this.
I did. I have so much on my mind.
You don't know what you can be until you know who you are,
Yeah.
and until you know who you were.
Yeah. No, you never said that to me.
I did.
No, you didn't.
Okay, I didn't.
God, I'm not crazy.
No, okay, I didn't. I said it to somebody.
You said it to your kids. But no, my two favorite subjects, well, I had three: English, history, and geography. And you couldn't get out of certain grades unless you could draw a map, and as precise as you could get it, and you were graded on that.
Yep.
And we learned history inside and out. I was sad when they eliminated that curriculum because it's important.
It is. It's incredibly important. You have to have a sense of who and where you are before you can become something that you want.
Yeah.
And that, I'll say this, to the viewing public, that never changes. I mean,
No.
the technology is great. But they're tools. They shouldn't be changing us. They should be assisting us in accomplishing
Great things. Yeah.
more efficiently and allowing us to accomplish greater things.
Right.
They shouldn't be the thing.
Yeah. But we get attached to our computers too much. I'm not a phone person. I carry the phone. I don't do any extracurricular on the phone. I use it as a phone, and it's one of the best ones. Our son gives it to us, Kenny and mine, and but I am a computer person, and I just like being connected.
Well, being connected's fine.
Yeah.
But where computers get dangerous is when you start assuming they're going to live for you.
No.
Then it gets dangerous. And, I would ask you not to be dismissive of that comment. I'm not saying you are, but because there are people out there. I have students. I tell my students, when you go through an exercise and it comes up error, everybody's hand is going to go up and say the computer's broken. And I would say, well, maybe it is. But before I blame the computer, I want to blame the operator. Because
Exactly.
wrong information in,
Wrong information.
wrong information out,
Oh, yeah.
or wrong information in can't compute. Okay, so let's take a step back and look at what we are inputting, because they are assisting us. They are not doing for us.
Right.
There's one computer that's never been changed in all of time, and that's the one between your ears and my ears. It's the same computer. It's got the same storage capacity. It works on the same.
Sometimes you got to dump some
Well,
information.
sometimes. Yes, and at least to preempting people.
yeah. The brain can only hold so much. But no, I'll leave the computer on during the day, minimize it, go do my thing, and come back to it. But I have to look at it. It's awful.
Yeah. Oh, so do I. I mean, I'm not. I get that it has changed us, and that's just who we are. We allow it to change us, and that's fine. But again, it's like everything else. You have to discipline yourself. Staying connected is one thing. Living it and having it eat, sleep, and drink and breathe for you. I mean, I always, and I was very tough on my kids about this. They didn't have a lot of computer games. They had some, but they didn't have a lot.
Yeah.
Because I said, go out and get dirty.
Yes, absolutely.
I got 2 acres of land. Go please get dirty. I'll do the wash. Mom will do the wash.
Go ride your bike.
It's not about pixels and color ramps and things like that.
I'm
it's
glad
just
my
not.
kids missed it.
Yeah, well, mine didn't. And fortunately, they were. I mean, they both are very much in their careers, use computers and use computer technology, but they can walk away from it.
Something goes wrong with our phone, and we've got the grandchildren there. It says, Josephine, Tommy, can you fix this? Says, oh, that's simple. Oh, all you have to do is boop, 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 boop. Oh, okay. Could you follow that? No way. And then you go back to them, a few weeks later. There's something wrong with it. I thought I showed that to you.
I agree, because we're in the same boat. I mean, the generations are entirely different. I just hope that they're around to take care of us when we get old and feeble.
Oh, I know. But I'm going to tell you something, Mark. I like the newspaper. I like books. I like the smell of a book. I like to turn a page.
I agree with you.
It's a lost art now. People have to do it more, get back into it. And I read that the Kindle has lost a little bit of its interest. I thought so. I never wanted a Kindle because it was too sterile for me. You sit there with the machine, and I want to turn that page.
When I was in high school, no, it was in junior high. Oh, no, high school. I think I was a freshman or a sophomore. They had a class, 1 credit elective, and it was a class on how to read the Sunday New York Times from page 1 to the end.
Yes, I heard about that. Now tell me, how is that done?
They just basically, the Sunday Times. I mean, the Globe was similar, not quite as big, but the Sunday Times probably had about 12 to 14 sections. Covering every aspect of life.
And my father and mother would read the Globe from cover to cover. It would last all week until the next Sunday.
There was the Times, and the Times, and I loved the old Globe. I used to, when I went to college in Connecticut, I used to buy Sunday Globes, not the Sunday Times, because I liked the paper better, even though I was more tied into New York stuff from growing up. But the course, I mean, it basically took the paper and dissected the sections because they were all consistent.
Yeah.
And they told you how to go through, and it was like a speed reading class to cover all the sections on Sunday.
Yeah.
But you weren't going to read all the sections on Sunday.
Not in depth.
No, you basically got a sense of what was going on. And then what it would do is, based on that glancing, you would prioritize, section 1, section 4, section 8, 9, 10. Those were the ones you really wanted to do first. You really needed that stuff. And then, of course, the rest of them, you prioritize behind them. Now, obviously, everybody has different interests. Some people like the arts and leisure. Some people like the sports section. But they always said that the first section you should look at.
Editorial. No.
First section was the front section.
Yeah.
The second section,
News.
Look at the editorials.
Yeah.
And then your third section, auto, sports, arts and leisure.
I go to the editorials first.
Yeah,
I think that's the meat, the heart of the paper.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
Now, I had books, and they read to me, but I loved it when my mother and father read the Globe to me. And I learned how to read by the time I was 4 years old. And they were very patient, and I loved it. And the treat was getting to the cartoon section. And if I didn't understand a cartoonist, they would explain it to me.
No, we can't tell you about that one. That's an adult cartoon. No.
But it's a lost art,
It is.
and it was family time, but our old Colony Memorial, I think, is a good newspaper. And I read a lot of it on Wicked Local, and the Old Colony. And but a lot of newspapers are charging now.
Yeah, they are.
A Cape Cod Times, you can just get certain stuff, and then you have to pay.
Yep.
They have to make money somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, sales in newspapers are the newspaper industry is, as we knew it growing up, is drastically changing, as are a lot of things.
So tell them the committee we sat on and almost killed each other. Not really, but it was okay.
We sat on a charter committee many years ago that supported a pro-mayor
but Dennis Begley was
philosophy.
ahead of the curve.
Oh, Dennis.
He said town council.
Yeah.
Mayor will not fly, Mark, in this town.
You're asking me what we did.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. We can debate forms of government at another time, but
that was a good charter.
Basically, it was a charter that was not supportive of, elected selectmen and town meeting. It went to a executive council, and the council was smaller than town meeting. Went to the town meeting because in the format we were working in had to get town meeting support to go to the voters. It did not.
But I knew that. I kept telling you people.
Well, there was, as you know, there's always a point to the madness.
Yes.
Okay, and there was a point.
Yes.
And the point succeeded. But it was an interesting thing because I know a lot of people said that, well, they all went in, they all were of the same mind. No, we weren't.
No.
There was a lot of give and take, and we always went back to the existing form to see if these brainchilds we were creating were really practical, and we believed they were.
It was well thought out.
Yeah, it was. It was a well thought out document, and unfortunately, it didn't pass. And it was one of the things that we all learned was the charter committee was not a way to get that form of government in place. For all the supporters out there who want it, it wasn't the venue. We proved that it wasn't the venue to do it. Will there be another charter commission? There are rumblings out there from what I hear.
You're kidding me.
No.
Already?
I have been contacted by at least 3 parties. Nothing that I would say is serious, but before there's an event, there's usually some.
Well, it's
rumblings.
every 5 years, and we just had one.
No, charter commission.
Oh, commission.
I'm sorry if I said committee.
You said committee.
I meant charter commission.
All right. Well, then, how many signatures? 10,000.
Yeah, I don't have the details of that.
Yeah.
But so that was a committee we sat on together. I sit on a lot of other committees in town. I have sat on committees. I'm also sitting on a committee right now. We're trying to wrestle with rewriting the section of the zoning bylaw that covers soil excavation and extraction.
Thank God.
So we're working on that.
What about the pit down in South Plymouth? It's awful.
Awful. Some might argue partially necessary. I won't, but. We're trying to make the bylaw, that section of the bylaw, a little bit more performance oriented.
Thank God.
And again, this is not an excuse, but one of the things that Massachusetts suffers by is a terribly antiquated Zoning Enabling Act, which is a state law, which has nothing to do with. Let me rephrase that, has everything to do with how our bylaw can be crafted. Okay,
it has to be crafted.
It's a government. It doesn't tell you what you can say. It tells you how to say it.
The parameters.
It gives you the framework. And
isn't that a state thing?
Yes, it's a zoning enabling act. It's legislation. There has been for 20 years. Maybe more, discussions on revamping the Zoning Enabling Act to change some things. So there's some things that are based on very, very old laws, very old practices, and they don't come into play anymore. So, but it has never gotten out of committee, and our planning board has spoken to the delegation, whatever form it's been in. We've written letters every time it comes up. We have written, I signed probably 5 letters to the legislature, to the delegation, wanting, this to be pushed through. And everyone admits, even the people up at the state say it's antiquated, but zoning is mind-numbing. When you get into it, nobody wants to deal with it. It's there, it's fine, leave it.
When I first started to listen to you people way back when, and you were talking topo, I didn't know what does that mean? I would say to myself, well,
You've learned.
Yeah, I've learned. Topical. No.
Topographical.
See, I didn't learn. But
you added a few syllables. That's in the right direction.
But it is mind-numbing. But you have to pay attention. I like it when the petitioner comes up and they put forth their ideas and how they want to do a development, whatever. And you either go crazy or you don't.
Who?
It's
Me?
the board.
Oh.
The board. They either,
Well, my philosophy has always been that I have one client. The client is the town of Plymouth and its residents. So when I sit on something, I look at it from the standpoint of how it is going to beneficially affect or adversely impact the community. Now, that doesn't mean I look at it through every individual's eyes. I can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's there like are individual.
They're individual. Everyone has an individual opinion, and you have to take those collective opinions and put them together. And I can speak with some certainty on this that people have commended me even while disagreeing with me because of the analytical way I treat things, and I try to be expeditious about it. I mean, I'm a scientist. I can process data pretty quickly, and I look at everything, and I try to give it a 360-degree view. And I like to hear from people who don't agree with me because sometimes you get a situation where you've never thought of something, and somebody says something, which is totally abstract to you, and then you sit back and you say, "Wait a minute, let me look at it through those eyes and see how it looks." And I'm not going to say many times, but I would say there are times where my initial view is skewed one way or the other by another view.
But I've seen you change your mind on logic.
I have some pretty hard and fast rules, but again, I will not say I will always hold to those rules, and I will not say I will never change my viewpoint. I mean, that's what this form of government, democracy, a democratic republic is all about. People say, well, they're not doing their job. They're not looking out for me. Well, no, they're not looking out for you because they've got to look out for everybody. It's a compromised government.
Right. That's why I liked Bill Cohane's answer last night, and I know, when he was asked, well, why don't you disclose the people that are selling the property? He goes, because we treat everybody the same. We don't want to punish anyone. They might have a title, but it doesn't matter. So what the CPC does is they work for the public as a whole. The planning board works for the public as a whole. You don't work for the developer.
No, they got a project team that's worth about $5,000 to $10,000 an hour working for them. The resident on South Meadow Road, or the resident on Bartlett Road, or the resident on Herring Pond Road, they don't have, big money advocates. They're expecting, or they should be expecting, I would hope they're expecting, that we're advocating for them. That's what they've elected us to do. And so we have to look at, and again, when you're a town board, you have to look at town-wide. You have to look at what the folks in Cedarville are thinking, the folks in North Plymouth, West Plymouth.
And it's all different.
Okay, if you're on a steering committee, you're dealing with a village center.
Tell me about
you
it.
know,
Yeah.
but I mean, that view is much more, concentrated to a part of town. When you sit on an elected board, and it's actually interesting because our planning board is pretty diverse geographically.
Yeah.
I think the only place we really aren't represented is we don't have a resident from North Plymouth, but I spend a lot of time in North Plymouth, so I think I get a sense of their thought. But, I mean, we have downtown people, we have Manomet people, we have Cedarville people. I mean, I know we say that Timmy is in Cedarville, but he really isn't.
No,
I mean,
he's in the hinterland.
he's in a service area, but he's really out, as you say, in a hinterland.
Yeah.
There's a perspective out there,
There is.
that is slightly different than their closest village,
Lakes.
which
Yeah.
is Cedarville. So, our board has a broad swath of viewpoint from the standpoint of where we live.
And at the same time, you're trying to make good decisions for the
entirety, not for where we live.
No. Yeah. And I've seen you go against things where you live. Black Cat Road was a prime example.
It is. It's the town elected me. The neighborhood didn't. I mean, the neighborhood helped, but they didn't. They didn't elect me. It was a town-wide issue. The town said, "Okay, we have enough confidence in you to do the job. Now do the job," which is also another thing. A lot of people have asked me in the past, in the middle of my terms, why don't you run for something else? Because I made a 5-year commitment to the residents of Plymouth. Okay, I ran for a term. I won. I went for that term. At the time, I made a decision: should I run for re-election or should I try for something else? And it was at a time when it was more prudent for me to stay with the planning board. That's where my effectiveness, my professional training, who I am, was more beneficial to the town. So I ran again. I ran unopposed, I know, and won. But again, the town, I was running.
It was a validation.
It was a validation, but it's funny because I'm a political science buff, and when you run unopposed, you're running unopposed. You're running unopposed, but you know something?
Yeah.
You could lose because you're running against one other candidate, and that other candidate is no. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Now,
Do
how
you
many times? How many no's will be voted on? Probably not enough. But when you look and you win by a big percentage,
that's different.
the percentage is the percentage. But you just mentioned it. Look at the blanks.
Look at the
no's.
Yeah.
Look at the other names. Because I go, when I run, hey, I'm a student of this stuff. I go out and I get the precincts. I look at the precincts and I want to see how the votes divvied out.
Yeah, exactly. But we're nerds.
Yeah, yes, we need lives. I know that.
I know.
Absolutely. Folks, I am not suggesting that all of you do this.
No, but
we're crazy people. We know that.
It's interesting, though, to see how the sections vote, how the precincts vote, and as they, come down and over the Pine Hills, and and how it changes.
Oh,
and the blanks. The blanks tell a story too.
They absolutely do.
And
they absolutely
you
do.
say the person should say to themselves, "Geez, why did that happen? Let me look inside myself."
That's it. It's a self-evaluation. Is what it is.
Absolutely. So don't think you're throwing it away when you're doing a blank.
No, there's something. If you're true to what you're doing, there is something to be learned. That is a piece of data.
Yep.
Okay, it's not. How do I want to say this? It appears not to be tangible, but it's very tangible.
Yeah.
Because if it is an opponent.
And I'll tell you one other thing that happens. Let's say a precinct, they're voting, and there's one name and that person lives in that precinct and they write themselves in. And you look at it and you go, oh, geez, what, what is it, an ego, or are they thumbing their nose? You know?
It could be any one of a dozen things. But what's interesting is they're not voting for the individual.
Right, it's the same
and
thing.
that's a statement. Now,
Yeah.
If it's one, it's not much of a statement.
Yeah.
But if they're out of a precinct of 3,000 voters, and let's say we don't get great turnouts. Let's say there's 750 votes cast in a precinct at
That's
an
about
election.
normal.
Okay. Well, if there are 30 blanks,
Yeah.
30 out of 750 is much more significant than 1 out of 3,000. It tells you something.
Absolutely.
If you read through it, it tells you something.
And that person should, really concentrate on the areas they think they're weakest in. They really should.
Well, it shouldn't. You shouldn't necessarily change.
No, I'm not
Okay.
saying to change, not to change.
Okay, maybe I
But
misunderstood
to
you.
double up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think you need to evaluate. You need to look at it and say, why did this happen? Why did I get one blank over here in precinct 12, but in
And
precinct 3, I got
20.
25.
Yeah.
Did I tick somebody off? Did I?
Yeah.
What was my
What is their
pattern?
need?
What was my pattern in voting as it related to
Yeah.
them? And the first thing you're going to say was, okay, how many things went on in precinct 3 that I voted yay or nay?
Who did I let down?
Yeah, right,
Who did,
exactly. And because again, they are your constituency. Mm-hmm. So you have to treat it that way. And there's a piece where you just say, that one of the reasons I'm in planning board, I ran for planning board, is I'm knowledgeable in it. I mean, I deal with land use all the time.
That's why it's going to be terrible.
I got paid very well, and still do get paid very well for doing land use. And on the private side. So it's where my skill sets best work. Okay. Now my skill sets can work in other areas. I know that, but for the time, that's
well,
where.
You're a logical person. You would have made a great selectman too someday. I mean, if you ever go after that.
I never say never, and I never say always.
But Rob Beelen is going to go for the seat.
He's one of 2 candidates running for the seat.
Now, Rob has volunteered his time through the years for the town.
Yeah, he has, and I've always felt, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, although it'll sound like this. During my tenure as chair of the planning board, originally the alternates basically sat and could not participate because they weren't voting.
Right.
And I changed that policy on the board. I think Kenny benefited,
Yeah.
Rob benefited, Timmy benefited from it, because while they couldn't vote on the majority of the things that came before us, they showed up every week. They got their books. They read through it, and if I first brought them to the table, they used to sit out in the audience.
Oh, it was awful.
So they had to be there, and they were just like,
Bump on a log.
Yeah, okay, bump on a log. So I brought them to the table, and I also brought them to the table and said, up to deliberations on votes, I will always recognize an alternate who has something to say as part of the discussion. If you're taking public comment, if you're listening to the proponent, you're listening to the opponents, okay, and you have somebody who you've designated to be an alternate to pinch hit on those rare occasions where you need the supermajority, special permit vote.
Right.
You need a supermajority, and that's the only reason they're sitting there, and they got to be there every week. I said, no way. So they start contributing, and where I'm going with this is that it's, I think, a great place for people to learn how to deal with planning board issues. And, you know.
'Cause it's complicated.
And Ken, Tim, and Rob did yeoman work as alternates. And I think that they have all earned an opportunity to sit on the planning board. I'm supporting Rob. I mean, I'll say that, you know, on
So am I.
because I think he, and I'm saying that because he's earned that spot.
Yeah, he's earned it.
I supported Kenny. I supported Tim because they were there week in and week out, participating. And I didn't always agree with. This is not about.
It's not about that.
It's about understanding the process that they're in and contributing to that process.
Doing
and I
the
think
best
that.
job.
And I think that when you do that job and you don't quit after 1 year, you've earned the privilege of running and sitting.
Yeah.
And that's, you know.
That's the way I look at it. And I look at all the volunteers in this town, and they do yeoman's work. They really do. I mean, this town wouldn't be able to work without them.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, there's a lot of people doing a lot of things, and a lot of it is way below the radar screen. You don't see it. And
You gotta love it.
That's how it happens. And, you know, people always say, you know, why? Why do you do it? It's my investment back to the community that has taken care of me, nurtured my family. My two girls, I've said this before on this show and on my show when it was airing, my two girls are products of the Plymouth Public School System.
Yeah.
They're both doing tremendously well. They went to college. They graduated with degrees in a discipline. They're working in that discipline.
It's amazing.
You know, and, you know, for that, you know, I owe a lot to Plymouth just for that. I owe to Plymouth. I owe to Plymouth's taxpayers who helped me support those things.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's the only way to go. It's the only way I know how to function.
Yeah, that's.
And all the people that I know who volunteer, you know, that's how they think. Not everybody can do, not everybody wants to do it.
Right.
You know, 100% in. Just jump right in. And you're going to be sorely missed.
I'll be around.
I hope so. Well, we'll always be friends. I mean,
yeah, but no, I'll be around. I mean, I'm not climbing into a hole. I mean, I just, you know, one of the things that you learn is that even if you're good, too much of a good thing gets old. And, you know, and you got to know when to step back. A, because there's an exposure issue, or B, for your own sanity.
I love you. I love Mo. When you go home, you give her a big kiss for me.
I will. I'll give her a big kiss for me first, and then you, okay? Thank you. It was great. I always enjoy coming on.
Thank you so much, Mark. Well, hopefully we'll be back in 2 weeks. And thank you for tuning in. See you in 14. That went by.